A very, very happy Thursday to you today. I'm so very glad that we're able to spend this time together on this Thursday evening for me, perhaps morning or afternoon for you. Whatever the time may be, we are just very, very glad to have you joining us today for this Alta New Live. So, my name is Sarah, and I have some new stamps to share with you today, stencils, some inks, and lots of really fun tools and supplies, some new things to share with you today, some fun techniques, and I'm really excited to get to spend this time with you today. So, welcome everybody who is joining us. Hi, Melly. Melly saying hello to everyone. I think we have Angel with us here as well from Altenew. Hi, Cece. It's good to see you as well. And Jane is greetings from Ice, Iowa. Goodness, are you in the ice, Jane? I've been hearing lots of crazy weather reports, so hopefully everybody is doing okay and staying warm or staying dry or staying cool or whatever you need to be doing today. Rosie has shared. Thank you so much. And thank you for the reminder and also the reminder from our Altenew Angel. Also, just a reminder that if you share today's live while we are live, you can be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. And who wouldn't have fun with that one? Yeah, Jane is saying it's icy and snowy. That's a possibly dangerous combination. So I hope you can stay inside. Gloria is in Long Beach, California, where it may also be snowing. I'm hearing all kinds of really zany weather reports. I live in Hamburg, Germany right now, and we have rain, which is kind of what we normally have. But my family back in Oregon is sending reports from the snow, which normally doesn't really happen in the part of Oregon that I'm from, and certainly not in almost March. So hoping everybody is able to stay cool, dry, safe, whatever you need to do. Cool and Windy San Francisco is with Nancy. Nancy, nice to see you. Good to see you, Gloria, too. And wonderful to see everybody is sharing as well. So thank you very much for that. So I'm really excited to join you today because I got some new stamps from Altenew. So I'm excited to share those with you. I got some new ink pads as well, which is always an exciting thing for me. I love Altenew colored inks. And so I thought I'd put them together for tonight's live. So we are going to be playing today with the Nostalgic Florals stamp set. Now, this is a stamp set that is one that I think goes for so many different kinds of stampers because many of us look at this and we can think immediately of lots of different coloring and options. So this is a beautiful outline stamp set. You've got two nice large floral elements. You've got a smaller baby flower here. You've got some foliage as well, plus lots and lots of sentiments. Thinking of you, huge congrats, wow, love. And then you have some smaller sentiments in here that will also coordinate with things. So you could say, for example, wow, you did it, or huge congrats, you did it. There's also a tiny with in here, so you can do with, love. You've got good luck on here as well. So this is a really good all-around stamp set. Now, if you're thinking, ooh, I'm going to get my colored pencils out, I'm going to get my watercolors out, I'm going to get my markers out, all of those coloring mediums go beautifully with this set. So lots of techniques there as well. Now, if you are a new stamper, this is also great because you can simply stamp this with any of your inks, leave it as is, put it on a card and call it a day. That would be gorgeous. This would look beautiful stamped in black on maybe like a craft cardstock, clean and simple. You could start with some simple coloring mediums and you can explore from there. So it's a great set, not only for those who have lots of coloring mediums at their disposal, which is probably a lot of us, but also those who are just getting into stamping. So it covers a wide range. I'm also going to share with you some different coloring options for you, including some stencils that go along with this. So going along with the stamp set, of course, with Altenew, you always get the folder that's going to give you more project ideas. I love this. Also the Let's Color. This can kind of help you to see where different elements can go on a card and so on. So this is really helpful when you're working with your stamps, just to give you a little bit of inspiration. So that's the stamp set. That's the Nostalgic Florals. Of course, there is a die set to go along. So if you want to do some stacking and layering and create some dimension, this will give you a nice, perfect cutout image. So for all of the elements, those two large florals, and then the little small flower and your leaf and foliage options on there too. So got that. Then we also have the stencils that go along. So let me grab all of these together. So here are the Nostalgic Floral stencils. Now, if you're used to a kind of typical or traditional stencil, like maybe something like the beach towel stripes, which is one of my favorites, and I'll show you a card that uses this on the background. This you can look at and you're like, I get that. That's a stencil. It makes sense. These maybe look a little strange, kind of confusing. You have 3 stencils inside here, and these are essentially masks to help you color some of your stamped images using a blending brush and your dye-based inks. So it may look a little confusing, but fortunately, Altenew, of course, gives you your coloring and stenciling guidelines on here. Super, super easy to do. And I'll show you the way I did it, and then I'll also refer you and kind of demonstrate to the way Lydia did it, which will give you 2 different looks. Okay, so that's going to be our focus today, the Nostalgic Florals. Really, really love these set, and they just go beautifully for so many different occasions. So I mentioned I also have some new ink pads. I've got 3 new of the little cubes, beautiful colors, some new colors. Just can't get enough of these. I've got blues and I've got greens and I've got some kind of earthy tones. So I'll show those to you too. And we'll be combining everything to create a couple of different cards. I've got 3 card samples that I want to share with you today. And this is the first one that we're going to start out with. And this is using the stencils to color in the stamped image. So this is combining my dye-based inks and the blending brushes. And so we'll kind of talk about the blending brushes, different options. I've got these nice big ones that I love to use. And I'll also show you with some of the smaller ones as well. So once we get into all of this, everything will start to hopefully make a little more sense. Okay, so hello to everybody who has joined us while I've been nattering on. Tracy and Brandon and Avril and Sue, it's good to see you. It's good to see everybody. Serena, let's see, Vicky, Tracy, wonderful to see everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Okay, I'm going to change down the view so that you can see my work surface, and we'll jump right into our demonstration. Okay, let me clear this away here and get my glasses on so that we can start to play with our various combinations. So let me just whiz through quickly the cards that I want to show you today. So this is the first one that I wanted to demonstrate, and this is using, as I mentioned, the stencils and those inks. So this is one way to get some nice color. Then I've also got the stamped and an embossed image. So that's a different one of the flower clusters. It's just this flower layered on top of some of these leaves. Now this I've colored in using my watercolor pencils. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, and I will show you how easy that is to do. There's that beach stripes, beach towel stripe stencil in the background there, by the way. And then the last card I want to show you, This is a really pretty technique that I did not make up. I saw it on one of the Altenew channels, either their Instagram or Facebook. I wish I could remember, and I wish I could remember who it was who showed how to add in some watercolor and then stamp on top. So my thanks to the Altenew person who designed this, and hopefully maybe one of you guys saw this too. Hopefully I will find out the name of that person so that I can give them proper credit. But we'll talk about how to use those watercolor pencils in a slightly different way. Okay, so let's start out here. I'm going to grab my stamps to start with. And let's start with this big, beautiful blossom down here. So I've got some plain white cardstock that I'm going to use. Set aside some of my things here. And I'm going to be using my Misty stamp positioner and my Obsidian black ink. So lots of you know that this is my stamping ink that I love so very much. It's like the best black ink pad that I have found. So this is what I'm using for all of my black ink stamping. I'm going to just pull off my stamp and position this down. And I'll sort of snug up my magnets here onto my cardstock. And I'm just using a plain, smooth, white cardstock, nothing really fancy. Okay. And let's ink this up. Serena, you think Obsidian is the best? Me too. In fact, I gave my mother an ink pad, the Obsidian black as well. A couple of other things from Altenew too. And she's a stamper. She's been stamping for about as long as I have, which is like a really long time. And she's like, this is the best black ink pad. She goes, I'm using it all the time. I just love it so much. It is my go-to black ink pad. Okay, so I'm just going to stamp this down. And there we go. Looks like I missed a little bit down there. It's the beauty of the Misty. Okay, let me clean this off just a little bit before I move on to the next step. And then we can get into our stenciling. Okay, toss that over there. And start coloring. Okay. I seem to be running out of space. I don't know how this is. I think when you're stamping, when you're working, it just gradually your space becomes smaller and smaller. I'm not sure how that happens. Okay, so for my flower and my leaves, I really only need two colors. Because this is not a layering stamp or a layering stencil. There are those available, but all we need is one color for our blossoms, one color for the inside here in the flower center, and then one color for the leaves. So I'm going to start with the flower color. I'm going to use the Crystal Violet. And the set that I'm working with here is called Blue Mountains. And this has 4 ink colors ranging from light to dark. So this is a great option for any of those layering stamp sets. I'm going to grab out the Crystal Violet. Of course, I had to have the blues. Lydia was like, do you need new inks? And I'm like, yes, because a lot of my inks are like 10 years old. And, you know, they've been used and abused. So I needed some new inks, and I'm just so excited with these. For my leaves, I'm going to use eucalyptus, and this is from the Frosted Foliage. So again, 4 different colors in there. And then for my flower center, I'm going to use the Dusty Rose, and this is from the Woodland Escape set. I love the names. Pop this out. And I have to say, I also really like keeping my, I call them foursies. That's not the technical name for the sets of 4 ink pads. I like keeping them in their plastic case, and I just find that it helps to keep everything just a little bit more organized. I used to have them out of their cases, and things kind of, they ran away from me a little bit. So I'm keeping them in there for now. Okay, so now for coloring. As you can see, you could easily leave this as is. You could stamp a sentiment with black and have a really beautiful card without any color on here. Again, you could also add in your colored pencils, markers, and so on. But we're going to grab our stencils and do our coloring here. So let's take a look. Now, I'll show you. Okay, I have to back up a little bit. On the Altenew website, on the product page, if you were to go to buy the Nostalgic Floral set, you will see a little product description and an area where there's a video. And Lydia has done a very nice video to show you exactly how to do the stenciling. And I will show you what she does, and then I'll show you what I did, because I wanted you to be able to see the flower with the leaves and the floral colored, but also how this looks with just the floral color. So I'm going to do things a little bit backwards from the way she did it, but I would probably recommend in real life to go the way she did. Okay, so in your stencil set, you have 3 stencil designs. So 1, 2, and 3. I've marked on mine with a permanent marker just because it's easier for me to see as I'm working. The numbers are embossed on the plastic, so they're always on there. But I just find that for me, it makes it easier for me to see what I'm looking at quickly and easily. I don't have to kind of tilt this and squint at it. So I don't need number 1 or number 3. I do need number 2. And I know this because on the inside here, the flower that I'm working with is this one right here. And so you'll see on the diagram, it's this plus this, which is labeled B1, and there's a number 2 underneath. So I know that this is B1 of stencil 2, B2 stencil 2, B3 of stencil 2. So all of my elements are going to be on stencil number 2. So I'm going to set away 1 and 3, put those over here so they're out of my way. And then you can see the various shapes on here. So this is where things start to make a little more sense because you narrow things down a bit. So here's what you're going to do. You'll take your stamped image. Do make sure that the ink is dry, especially if you're using a pigment-based ink. Now, Lydia said in her video that she finds it easier to start not with number 1, as you might think, but with number 6, which is the leaf area. And she positioned this like so. You can see where that will just fit right over. And then she does her ink blending on top. And then she scoots the stencil over to do the other leaves because all of the orientations will be the same. So, and then she'll move on to the flowers. But I thought, let's take a look, and you can watch that video and I would recommend it. I thought, let's take a look at what the flower looks like when we only have the flower colored, because I think it looks really dramatic to have the leaves as black and white. So that's how I'm going to start things. So I'm going to start with number 1. And what I'll do is position this on top here, like so. So you can see how that just fits right over there. And then let me grab my blending brush. So I'm using this one. Yes, it needs to be cleaned. It will have a bath after our video today. But you can see I've used this one often with pink, but then also with some blue. So this is with the crystal violet that I'm going to be using it. Now, if you're looking at this and going, you must have a steady hand not to get that blending all over everywhere. Well, sometimes if I'm really careful, that can happen. But for the most part, what I like to do is give myself a little bit of extra security. And I use a little bit of washi tape to kind of tack down my stencil and my paper in place. And then I'm just going to grab some scrap paper and mask off these other areas. If you have a smaller blending brush, you may not have this issue. But for me, because I'm using this nice big blending brush, I want to have a little bit more security around here, just for my own sake. more than anything else. So I kind of have everything masked off like this. Okay, so then I'm going to grab my blending brush. I'll take my crystal violet and just ink this up. These blending brushes are lovely. And then just making sure everything is in place, I'm going to gently apply my ink right through the stencil. And you can use firm pressure, light pressure. You can position more of the ink color to be toward the center of the petals. You can really play with the look that you're getting. I think you can see that going through there. And then when I lift this off, you will see how that has just colored in perfectly in here. So that's just 2 of the petals. Now, what I would do from there is continue on. So that was 1, then we can move over to 2. And again, just positioning this down. Same process as before. I'm going to tack everything down in place. Mask things off because I'm funny about that. And then I'm going to carry on. So this is where you can continue on with the same pressure or different pressure, just depending on the look that you're going for with your color application. So scoot this over here. And when I'm applying my ink, I'm really just using a circular motion on here. I love these blending brushes. They are really big. They fit so nicely in your hand and they just work beautifully. Okay, let's see how we are. Okay, so here's my flower coming along. So then I need my last petal on here, which is this guy over here. That's going to be number 3. And once again, popping this down. Okay. All right, so here's our final petal. And there you can see. So now I've just got my beautiful blue blossom on here. And I want to add in the center of my flower. And that's going to be number 4. So again, just position this down like so. Now, in contrast to my really large blending brushes, I've also got some smaller ones. So here's a little handheld one, a little bit easier. And this one I'm going to ink up with Dusty Rose and add a bit of color in there. Now this one I don't have to worry about because it's a smaller brush and a smaller area here. And there we go. Now what I wanted you to see in this case, because I always like to show people the way that you would normally use your supplies and also some alternatives. So if you were going for a different look, maybe you wanted to have something a little bit more where the flower is popping out a bit more, you wanted to add some more black and white imagery back in here, this could be a stopping point. This looks really pretty as it is, and I think would be a beautiful focal on a card. And of course you could add on here from here if you wanted to. So you can leave the leaves uncolored if you want to. That's totally an option. But let's go ahead and add our leaves on here anyway. And here we can start with our leaf portion of the stencil. So that's going to be number 6. And this is going to be exactly the same process. So you can start to see, once you get the gist of it, it's really easy. And I'm going to be using the eucalyptus for this one. And I'm going to swap out to another blending brush. And this is the brush that I use only for greens, as you can see. This also needs a bath. I have to wash all of my tools and supplies after this. But this is the one that I use always, always, always for my greens. So again, I'm masking things off here. Ink this up. And then blend this on. Now you can play with the different colors as well. You could start with a lighter green and then add in some darker green as well. If you want to do a bit of blending and layering, that can also work too. So there are a lot of options that you can experiment with for these stencils. The stencils are super cool. I just am having so much fun. So here's one area of our leaves that's colored. And then I'm going to scoot over to number 5 and finish this off. It's really easy, really, really easy. And a lot of fun too. Coloring is so relaxing, I find. I had a lot of travel over the weekend, and so I was preparing these projects in the kind of the midst of like getting ready and sort of the stress of packing and making sure I had everything. And it's just relaxing to be able to do some coloring, just sort of play with my colors and my stencils. Just makes you feel good. It's just relaxing. Okay, so again, just adding in my color here. Go as light or as dark, as intense or as subtle as you want. Okay, so that was with the eucalyptus. And then all of my scrap paper. You can use sticky notes, but I end up with so much scrap paper that I like to put that to use. Okay. And there we have our finished piece. So really easy to do, really beautiful. And I just love those soft, pretty colors in there. Now, my original card, I was working with a lot more pressure on some of those leaves. So I've got some variation there. So you can really play with your different, and it's the same ink pad, it's the crystal violet. So you can really play with the amount of pressure, the amount of color that you're adding in, and take it in lots of different directions, which is a lot of fun. I just adore this. So the other thing that I will add, along with my brushes, of course, my stencil needs a good wash at this point. And what I generally do is rinse it under some running water, add a little bit of liquid like washing up dishwashing soap, and gently get the ink off. I try not to scrub at it a whole lot because there are some fine elements in here. And if you're really going at it quite assertively with like a cloth or something or baby wipe, then those really fine areas in there can get damaged. So just take care, rinse it off, let it air dry, and it is ready to go for the next time. And then for the rest of the card, I've just added the good luck stamped on here with my obsidian black ink pad. I've got some sequins on here that I just glued down. These are the, let's see, antique gold sequins. And those are just simply glued on here. I did a little bit of splattering, also using the dusty rose in the background. And then there you go. So quick and easy, really simple to do. And a lot of fun, again, with those stencils. So that's our first card project using this stamp set. Now let's take a look at another coloring method. So here we've got the other large floral element. And again, this portion is all one piece. I've popped this up on some foam tape. These elements here are just the leaves from the stamp set, simply stamped in black. So again, you can play with the amount of color that you're adding onto your card. So let's talk about getting our floral element here because I want to show something else to you. I'll move aside my colored inks and I'm going to go back to my obsidian and let me get a piece of cardstock. And I'm going to stamp my image onto some smooth white cardstock, but I'm going to do some embossing. So when I'm coloring with a medium that I want to incorporate water with, so for example, with my watercolor pencils, I really like using embossing because that will create not only a beautiful, crisp, and raised image for all of the elements on here, it also helps to hold in a watery medium and you never have to worry about the ink smearing. So what I've done here is stamped it with my obsidian pigment ink, and then I've done embossing with clear embossing powder. Now, what I really like about this is that it gives that beautiful, crisp, classic look of a black ink pad, and the clear gives you that advantage of having the sort of resist effect and those raised edges. And I can see it. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I can definitely see a little bit of shine in there, and that is thanks to the embossing powder. Now, I really like this also because although we look at the pigment ink printed on the front of the package, it's easy to forget that this can also be used as an embossing ink. So let's have a look here. So I'm going to have my embossing ink or my embossing powder at the ready. This is the clear. Don't have very much left of it. I use it an awful lot. And I'm also going to have another piece of my scrap paper on hand, folded so that I can catch any excess embossing powder in the jar, because as you can see, I need to save every little granule of this. I go through it a lot. Okay, so let me grab my other stamp, and I'm going to use this one here, this other nice, big, beautiful floral. So pretty. I love the size of these flowers too because they do really work beautifully as a card focal. Okay, let's just pop this down like so. Snug up my magnets here. And when I stamp to emboss, I very often will stamp twice. And I don't know if that's just like a little bit of added security in my mind or something, but I tend to have that as a habit. Sometimes I do it without thinking or without saying anything about it, and people wonder why I'm stamping twice, but I like to do it 2 times just to make sure that I've got all of that area stamped and ready to go. Okay, again, it just looks beautiful as it is, so you can leave things black and white if you want to. That's always an option. Okay, so now quickly, I'm going to move this away from the magnets, open up my scrap paper, and I'm going to add my embossing powder on here. Make sure that I get this all over. And set that aside so that I can funnel back my precious clear embossing powder back into the jar. Save every little bit. And let's see, I'm going to clean off my stamp. And then we can heat set. So if you hang in there with me for a second, I'm going to heat set this quickly and then we'll take a look at coloring. Okay, so my embossing powder is all melted. I always like to give a little bit of a wiggle here just to make sure that I'm getting some shine on here. And I did see a couple of questions as I was embossing. I wanted to make sure that I answer those. Tammy was asking if I make most of my cards 5x7. They usually are about 4x6 or 5x7. I generally have like pre-scored blank white cards. So sometimes it just depends on, whether I'm buying European size or American size or British size. Sometimes the orientation can be a little bit different there too. But yeah, generally 5x7 is what I'm generally working with. So I hope that answers your question. Connie says she needs to remember to use simple black and white. You know what, Connie? I forget this all the time too. And it's such a crisp, classic, and beautiful look. And then it looks like Natalie has just joined us. So welcome, Natalie. Sorry you jumped in while I was doing something as boring as heat embossing. That probably didn't sound very friendly. So now that I've got my stamped image stamped once again with the Obsidian pigment ink, using that as a pigment ink and clear embossing on top, now I can do a little bit of painting in. So I'm going to be using my watercolor pencil set for this. I really love these watercolor pencils and have just been having so much fun working with them. So I've also got a glass of water with some water brushes in here and paint brushes, and we can get ready to play. Okay, so the watercolor pencils from Altenew are a woodless watercolor pencil, which means that you don't have, like with a normal pencil, just looking around if I have a regular pencil. Well, if you call this a regular pencil, where you have the lead in the middle and you've got wood surrounding it, these are different. So these are all like basically all pigment, which means that you're getting some really rich, vibrant color, and it goes down beautifully. It goes down really smoothly. So I'm working with just a couple of the colors from the collection, and I'm just going to start coloring in using my pencils. So I'm going to start with the lightest color here, which is this light yellow, and this is lemonade. And I'm just scribbling the color in here. I think it might be a little tricky to see because it's so light, but you can probably tell that I'm not going to the edges. I'm not being especially careful. I'm just getting some of this nice, bright, crisp yellow in here. So put that over to one side. Then I'm going to start working my way up to slightly darker colors. Now this is the Coral Bliss. And for the Coral Bliss, I'm going to use this in some of these folded over areas and also kind of around the edges of the petals. And we're going to blend all of this with water. So there's no need to be concerned about precision at this point. What's nice though with the tip is that you can get into some of these areas here, some of the more detail areas. So this is the Coral Bliss. And again, just kind of scribbling this in here. And let's go, let's see, this is the Heartbeat, another favorite of mine. And this one, I'll add a little bit less of around in here. And I can always add more. That's the beautiful thing about watercolors is you can always add more. It's a very forgiving coloring medium. And the pencils are just a joy to work with. Okay, so that was just those three colors. I'll move these aside. And I'm going to work with my water brush here. Let me get my yucky rag as well. I'm going to work with my water brush. And I'm just going to use the water brush. I'm not filling the barrel, by the way. I'm just using the water brush essentially as a paintbrush. and I'm blending those colors. Now, the nice thing about the embossing is that I don't have to worry about the ink smearing. If you've ever stamped something and then went to color it like with a marker and the ink smears all over, and you know how sad that can be. You don't have to worry in this case because that obsidian black has been heat set and embossed, so it's not going anywhere. Okay, and you can start to see how those colors are blending. It is just so relaxing, just like our other coloring medium. There's something about coloring. It's maybe like my flashbacks to kindergarten or something, when all you had to do was color things in or draw pictures of things. And I think that just takes us back there. There's something about coloring, crafting, making nice things, just makes us feel good. Okay. So this is quite soft and subtle, quite like that actually. Really letting a lot of that lemonade, that beautiful yellow in there shine through. So what I'm going to do is add in a little more color in the flower center. And this time I've got crimson. So you can color, or you can use your watercolor pencils by the method I just showed you. You can also take your brush to the tip of your pencil and pick up a little color there and add that in as well. I'm just kind of dabbing this in here. Again, my embossing is going to hold everything in. And then I've got my colored center. So that is the flower portion. So then let's talk about the leaves. Got some colors for the leaves as well. I'm going to start with the limeade, which is the darker of my two green colors. Green, grassfield is the other one. So this is grassfield and this is limeade. And again, I'm just scribbling this color in here. Beautiful colors in this colored pencil set. I got the colored pencils for my mom as well. I think it was for her birthday last year. And she's an avid stamper. She's an avid fan of Altenew too. And whenever she brings up Altenew, she'll always say like, they're just the nicest people. It's so cute too, because like she's never met any of the Altenew people. I think she's just heard me say how nice they are. But she always adds that too, like, oh, did you see Altenew has some new stencils out or some new inks? She'll say, without missing a beat, they're such nice people. They're just the nicest people, which is very true. And if you've been around any of the Altenew people in person, you will know that they are just really, really nice people. Okay, so I've just scribbled in my two colors here, and I'm going to do the same process I did before with my wet water brush. Now you can use a paintbrush as well. I love water brushes for any kind of watery medium technique because I find that they hold up really nicely, especially in contrast to paintbrushes that have wooden handles. If you are hard on your brushes, like I sometimes can be, the plastic it really does withstand use and abuse. Okay, so I'm just coloring in my leaves here, and voila, there we go. Now this is a bit more soft and subtle than the look I had before. So again, if you wanted to, you could add in more color here. You could do lots of different options as well. And I just love the possibilities of creating so many different colors of flowers as well. So that was using the colored pencils to color in and then to smooth out with our water brush. Simple and easy to do. Now for the stenciling on the background that you can see here, this is one of my all-time favorite stencils. This is the beach towel stripes stencil. And I've simply popped this down onto my paper. Let me grab a piece here, like so. And then using my super gigantic blending brush, I did this one. Did I stencil this with, I think that was also with eucalyptus. Let me show you. This is a great way to get a nice background. And this stencil, stripes work beautifully with florals. This stencil is super easy to use. So pop this down. Now, the other fun thing is you could angle this. You could have it going diagonally. You could do only half of your background. And in this case, I just popped it down. Now, you may want to use some washi tape to secure this in place. I'm gonna live life on the edge here and just blend this like so. Just hold it down. I'm going in the direction of the stripes, so not like this, which will cause things to get caught. And then you just carry on like so, and you will end up with your stenciled background. Now, this is quite faint, so let me show you the starker version here. You can see, but I haven't stenciled it all the way. I've got some open space here, and then I've layered my flower, my die cut flower. So I use the die cut for this, and then also stamped and die cut the leaves just with black ink. I didn't emboss these ones, but you certainly could if you wanted to. So when you're looking for creating backgrounds with the florals, remember a geometric pattern always looks great with floral elements. So stripes, dots. In this case, I've done some spattering on here, so I've got kind of the best of both. Okay, I have one more technique that I want to share with you. And again, this was one that I saw from someone on Alta News, one of Alta News social media channels, and I wish I could remember who it was, but I thank this person for the inspiration, and maybe one of you knows this person, maybe one of you is this person. So I'll share with you the technique, and then we can talk about how to put it together. So in this case here, I've done my watercoloring onto a piece of watercolor cardstock, but the stamping is going on top of the watercolor. So what I've done here is used my liner sheet. Let's see, move this. I'm using this floral piece. And what I'm going to do is grab, let's see, I was working with Dewdrop. I've got Dewdrop, and I have Limeade. So two of my favorite shades, the blue and the teal blue and the green. And what I'm going to do is color onto scribble color, not precision color, scribble color onto my cardstock in about the area where this will go. Okay, so I'm using the liner as my guide. So I'm going to start with my blue, and I'm just going to kind of lift this up, sort of peek under here, and come around here. And I can see about where that is. So then I can do my leaves. And again, just kind of scribble this in here, not going for precision. Just basic scribbling, so you can see where those leaves are going. Okay, so if I hold this up, you can see that I've got color going approximately where my flower will be and the leaves. So now that I've got this color down here, it looks a little bit funny. Again, I'm going to bring in my water brush and I'm just going to blend this out. I'm not worried about where things are or the shape of things. I want this to be really soft and watercolory. Watercolor is often not too terribly precise. So I'm going to add in some color here. And here for our leaves. It's very free form, I guess you would say. Okay, and then it's still wet, so I want to be a bit careful, but I'm just going to kind of position this on here and go, yep, that's about it. That's about the right area. Now, what I would also do here is let this dry thoroughly before I do my stamping on top. Now, you can give it a quick zip zap with your heat tool if you want to. I've got a piece that I did earlier looking equally like, like a preschooler was finger painting. And then I can do my stamping on top here. But you definitely do want to make sure that your ink is dry before you start stamping. Okay, so here's my stamp. I'm going to kind of play with the positioning, make sure that that's where I want it to go. And then grab the Misty. Again, pop this down. And let's see here. I think I've got that about right. And once again, I'm going to ink this up with my obsidian black. It's way over there. Okay, I just let this one air dry, but again, you could heat set it if you're in a hurry. Won't take too terribly long to dry with air drying, but it depends on your schedule. Okay, and I'm going to ink this up just a bit more. And position this down here. So the look that I'm going for is one that is much more abstract. It's just got some nice color going on in the background. Not really precise at all. And for this one, I was using, I'll set this off to the side. I was using watercolor cardstock. I think you could also do this on any kind of nice, sturdy, smooth cardstock. So now I've got my flower stamped on here. You could definitely do your stamping and then watercolor on top of it, but I also really liked, what attracted me to this technique was I really liked how it wasn't so precise, so that you were able to get kind of this free form effect, but you're able to still capture the various elements of the shape of the stamp. So again, coming back here to my original card. Again, I've got my blues and my greens in here. I also did some spattering with also with one of the watercolor pencils. And I think I was using the Desert Night, which is a dark blue. So you could do black if you wanted to. The dark blue also looks really nice for that technique. And then I've added my stamping sentiment on here, and I've got some gemstones or sequins here in the center as well. So 3 different ways that you can use this really versatile stamp set that we've been playing with today. Let me find it underneath all of my things here that I've got everywhere. And that is it for our nostalgic florals. But again, just taking another look at the stamp set. I'll turn it around, we can see it even better. And I think you can see not only with the stenciling and how easy and fun that was, but also with coloring in techniques. We haven't even talked about using like the artist markers or painting in with some of your dye-based ink. So lots and lots and lots of different options for using nostalgic florals with probably whatever coloring mediums you happen to have on hand in your stash. So I'm going to switch up the camera again. And there we are. We can see each other one more time. And I'll show you again just another quick whiz through our toys that we're playing with today. So the beautiful floral stamp set. Of course, we also were working with the die set too. And this one especially comes in handy for doing techniques like this, where you want to pop up one portion up on foam tape and then have the other elements going on top of a patterned or stenciled background. And then we also have our stencils. So the stencils that I was using, of course, the beach towel stripes, one of my favorites. Had that one for a long time. I've used it tons and tons. And then also our nostalgic florals coloring stencils, which are a lot of fun and which will give you a really beautiful effect like this, or depending on how much pressure you use, like this. And again, some of our inks that we've been working with, we've got some of the little foursies. I have the Blue Mountains. I have the Woodland Escape, those beautiful earth tones, and then also frosted foliage, those gorgeous greens. And last but not least, the other things that we were working with, our watercolor pencils. So my desk looks like there's just crafting supplies all over the place, which is the best kind of desk to have, I think. So a big thank you to everybody for joining. It has been my pleasure to spend this last hour with you. I hope that you got some ideas and saw some inspiration and maybe got some of the wheels turning. If you have this stamp set and you're playing with it, I'd love to know. I'd love to see some of the projects that you've worked on. And if you are working with any of the coloring stencils, I'd love to hear what you guys think about those too. They're just like, I find them so much fun and super relaxing to work with as well. So lots and lots of fun. A big thank you to Angel for being our Altenew Angel this evening and keeping us all up to date with all of the links. And the reminder too, we have like another minute left. So if you have not already shared tonight's live while we're live, go ahead and do that, and you may be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. I can think of like probably much more than $15 worth of supplies that I could easily purchase at Altenew. So I'm sure you're probably a little bit like me in that sense. And a big thank you to Altenew for providing this very fun opportunity for us to get together. So again, thanks so much for joining me. I will see you again next month. I think later toward the end of the month, I'll have 2 more live. So I'll look forward to seeing you all then. And do take care. Have a great rest of your day or your evening. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend ahead. So it's been very, very fun to be with you. And I look forward to seeing you again later. Take care, everybody.